Let's talk about one of the most famous characters in all of literature, the Mad Knight, Don Quixote. We all know the story, right? But what if the tale we've been told for centuries got it completely wrong? In this explainer, we're going to dig into a really radical new take on who he was. So let's just dive right in with a pretty wild question. What if everything you think you know about him is just not the real story? What if history's most famous madman wasn't actually mad at all? To get to the bottom of this, our story actually begins 20 years after the famous Don Quixote died. We're going to focus on his nephew, a young man named Alonso Quijano, who has basically spent his entire life trying to live down his uncle's, let's say, colorful reputation. Now, on the surface, Alonso is the picture of good sense. He manages his estate, people respect him, he keeps to himself. But he's got this secret. At night, he pulls out the very same books of chivalry and romance that everyone says are the reason his uncle lost his mind. But this isn't just some guilty pleasure. For Alonso, it's a mission. He's on this private philosophical quest. He's trying to figure out what madness even is. What's sanity? And why is the world so obsessed with drawing this hard line between the two? Alonso's quiet life of investigation is about to get completely turned upside down. Why? Because someone totally unexpected is about to show up. A mysterious stranger. And this isn't just some random traveler. An old man rides into town who has spent 40 years, think about that, his entire adult life, completely obsessed with one single thing, finding out the real story behind the legend of Don Quixote. He's not here to praise the story we all know and love. Nope. He's here to tear it all down. He looks at Alonso and says he is seeking the truth about why the famous book is a lie. And he's got proof, or at least what he claims is proof. He's carrying this lost manuscript. And get this, it's supposed to be a true confession from Cide Hamete Benengeli. That's the historian Cervantes always said was his source, the guy everyone just figured was a made-up character. Well, this manuscript, it turns out, holds a revelation that changes absolutely everything. It offers up a whole new way of thinking about sanity itself. So Alonso takes the manuscript, and as he starts to read just the first few lines, the entire legend, the story that has defined his family for decades, it just starts to completely fall apart right in front of him. The very first sentence hits like a bombshell. It says, "Here is the first truth. The man you call Don Quixote was not mad." That is a stunning, direct challenge to hundreds of years of literary history. So how does this work? Let's break it down. The official story says it was madness. The manuscript says, no, it was a deeper perception. The book tells us he saw windmills. The manuscript says he saw those windmills as symbols for huge unseen forces in the world. Suddenly, the story isn't just a funny joke anymore. It's a really serious question about what's real. And here's the manuscript's most powerful, most mind-bending argument. It says that Quixote's way of seeing the world was so much richer, so much more real, that if that counts as madness, then our normal, everyday sanity is actually the disease. So what do you do when you're hit with an idea that explosive? Well, for Alonso, staying in his quiet old life is no longer an option. He has to start his own journey into the great unknown. And then, just as quickly as he appeared, the stranger is gone. He just vanishes, leaving Alonso all alone with this world-changing document and a choice that is going to alter the entire course of his life. It's like a light bulb goes off for Alonso. He suddenly sees that what we call sanity is really just an unspoken agreement. It's an agreement to see a simpler, more manageable version of the world. And his uncle? He just refused to sign on the dotted line. And Alonso realizes if he wants his own answers, he can't stay home. He has to hit the road. As he's getting ready to leave, his mother gives him this beautiful, simple piece of advice, almost like a blessing for the journey ahead. Okay, so it's one thing to have this radical new philosophy, right? But how does it actually hold up in the real world? Well, out on the road, Alonso is about to face his very first test, learning to see the real giants. So Alonso, who's now traveling with a musician named Inés, they ride into this village that's in a total state of panic. The story they're told is that a local witch has kidnapped 2 children and is holding them in some old ruined tower. Sounds familiar, right? But instead of just accepting the story, Alonso decides to look deeper, to use that quixotic lens. The village sees a dangerous witch, but when Alonso and Inés actually go and talk to her, they find a totally different reality. Esperanza isn't a witch at all. She's a lonely, grieving mother who the town has shunned for 20 years, and she was just telling stories to a couple of kids.
And this is where we find the real giant in this story. It's not Esperanza. She tells them the real monster is the crushing weight of the village's guilt and indifference. She believes they just let her daughter drown years ago and never took any responsibility.
Now, the old Don Quixote would have charged in with a sword, ready for a fight. But Alonso understands the giant here isn't a person. It's pain, it's injustice. So he fights with empathy. He acknowledges her grief, validates her story, and by doing that, he stops a violent tragedy before it can even start. And for finally helping her be seen, Esperanza gives him this incredible blessing, one that perfectly sums up his new quest, and maybe the real legacy of his uncle too. And really, this is why this whole idea is so powerful. It makes you turn the question back on yourself. It leaves you wondering, what injustices, what unseen forces, what ignored truths are the giants that are hiding in plain sight in our own world?